Perfecto, pues bienvenidos otra vez a nuestro tercer webinar de LATAM Series. Estamos hoy muy contentos de tener a Roland como invitado con nosotros. Va a ser súper interesante esta presentación. Quisiera arrancar, pues como cada vez ya me da mucho gusto que ya nos conocemos y nos vamos conociendo, y parte de toda esta serie es el crear la comunidad, y hoy ver pues aquí a los conocidos y irnos conociendo es lo más importante y es parte del objetivo de esta serie de webinars. Yo soy Enrique Suárez, soy Regional Chair de México. Tengo varios estudios en negocios, y pues últimamente me he estado especializando en blockchain, en esta gran tecnología, y pues todo lo que se puede hacer en el mundo del real estate con el blockchain. Tenemos a nuestro co-host, que es Andrés. Que Andrés, dejo que te presentes.
Gracias, Enrique. Pues muy brevemente, he estado al frente de desarrollando mi carrera en empresas a base tecnológica, más o menos 15, 20 años trabajando haciendo desarrollo de negocio. Estoy encargado de Fibree para Colombia, y también soy miembro del board de Fibree recientemente, lo cual acumuló una experiencia más o menos de 5 años en Proptech. Y como lo están presentando, me conecté con blockchain a los inicios porque resido en Toronto, y desde ahí pues tuve la oportunidad de ver el nacimiento de Ethereum, y desde ahí pues he seguido trabajando en estos temas.
Perfecto. Pues un gusto como siempre. Queremos empezar dando el objetivo de este espacio y de la LATAM Series es crear un espacio de aprendizaje donde mes con mes podamos estar trabajando con las últimas aplicaciones de blockchain en real estate. La comunidad Fibree, una de las grandes ventajas que tiene es el alcance internacional. Entonces queremos traer a Latinoamérica todo lo que está pasando alrededor del mundo en las diferentes aplicaciones, y que de esta manera pues no solamente eduquemos, sino inspiremos a la comunidad a que tome esta tecnología y la empiece a utilizar. Esta serie la estamos llevando el primer miércoles de cada mes, y está basada en el reporte anual de Fibree del 2021. Me imagino que aquí pues ya muchos lo han bajado, y los que no lo han bajado los invitamos por supuesto a que lo descarguen desde fibree.org, ya que cada uno de los webinars que tengamos estamos hablando sobre uno de los artículos con un invitado internacional basado en el reporte. Nuestros próximos webinars que tenemos programados para diciembre, enero y febrero, vamos a estar hablando sobre diferentes temas: la centralización de datos en el sector inmobiliario, cómo puede cambiar la transformación y la propuesta de valor de blockchain en el caso de Suecia. Y en febrero vamos a hablar sobre la comunidad Fibree en Colombia, Argentina, Ecuador, y el ecosistema, cómo ha venido creciendo en la región. Andrés, si nos platicas un poquito de Fibree.
La misión de Fibree al principio nació como una organización en Europa, en Ámsterdam, y yo diría que tiene 3 puntos claves. El primero es educación, ya que pues es un tema tecnológico nuevo y en una industria que ha sido un poco rezagada en adopción tecnológica. Segundo es la promoción y la divulgación. Y el tercer punto, la tercera misión de Fibree, es como tú lo comentaste, Enrique, es crear esa comunidad internacional para que esto no quede en el papel, sino que se pueda ir adoptando, y a la vez podamos a través de la comunidad compartir experiencias, ya que pues los temas de adopción son completamente diferentes. Yo diría que eso es como la misión que tenemos en Fibree, y en este momento pues hemos evolucionado muy bien.
Quisiéramos agradecer a nuestros patrocinadores del Fibree LATAM Series, a CBRE, que es nuestro patrocinador global, Mountex Real Estate Capital, una empresa que tokeniza inmuebles en México y en Latinoamérica, a Proptech LATAM, a Colombia Proptech, así como México Proptech, las asociaciones, a la CANCHAM, que es la Cámara Nacional de Canadá en México, a Citizen, la cual es una plataforma también que utiliza blockchain para abrir las inversiones a nivel global, y a este Real TV, el medio digital inmobiliario enfocado en Latinoamérica. Ahora quisiera presentarles a nuestro invitado, o Andrés, si lo presentas.
Claro, Enrique, pues es un gran privilegio tener de invitado a Roland. Es un alto ejecutivo, tiene una gran trayectoria en el real estate, también es Regional Share en la ciudad de Frankfurt. Y como ustedes ya lo pudieron leer en el reporte, que los invito de nuevo a descargarlo y a leerlo, él escribió un artículo que nos pareció súper importante, porque no es algo solamente europeo, creo que es algo que pasa a nivel global, sobre la transparencia. Entonces es un gran placer tenerlo a Roland y inmediatamente le vamos a dar la palabra. Roland nos va a hacer una presentación de aproximadamente unos 20 minutos y de ahí tendremos la oportunidad de hacer unas preguntas. De nuevo los invitamos a que pongan esas preguntas en el chat para que podamos tener la oportunidad. So Roland, we are glad to have you here today as a guest. We will give you the opportunity to start now with your support, your presentation, and please, you might take 15-20 minutes, and after that you might have questions from us and from the audience.
I'm trying to do it this way. Can you see
Yes.
the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it works.
Can you still see me?
No,
it's okay.
Okay, so you are having at least the possibility to see my presentation. So thanks again, guys, for having me. I'm going to go the fast track just to give you the possibility to, if you like, to have a discussion. So we're going. I would like to talk to you about winning the transparency game in real estate, which is Cómo ganar la partida de la transparencia en el sector inmobiliario. Thank you, Tanya, for this wonderful translation. It was really good to see how it translates into Spanish. So to talk about this, I would like first to talk a little bit about the role of the regulation behind that, and then to discuss the data factor, especially in the case of real estate. And then I would like to finish with the more or less complex way to transparency. So you all remember the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations, which goes back to September 2015 when it was agreed among 193 member states. So the main idea was to achieve a better future for all of us, for all people on Earth. And to do that, the Agenda 2030 set up 17 sustainable development goals. Not only that, but just to make these goals more operational, they defined 232 indicators behind them just to address the most important economic, social, environmental, and governance challenges. So there are many goals which apply to real estate. So we're not only talking about responsible production of building materials, but even about that kind of topics like the use of buildings. So, and since that time, since the Agenda 2030 was created, regulators all over the world have been working on frameworks for the so-called ESG criteria. Today, I would like just to highlight some ideas about the way the European Union is approaching sustainabilities. So since the Agenda 2030, there have been many initiatives which are turning into regulations in the EU and within the European Union. Here are some of them. So we had in November 2019 a regulation which is important for the financial sectors because it is focusing on disclosures in the financial services sector. After that, we had the big European Green Deal in December 2019, which aims mainly to make Europe climate neutral by 2050. That means to have zero carbon on the one hand side, and on the other side, to boost the economy through green technology and to create industries and transport systems which cut pollution. After that, we had in June 2020 the EU taxonomy, which is very important, especially in the financial sector. Why that? First, because the EU taxonomy is part of the action plan on financing sustainable growth. And second, because it delivers a common classification system for sustainable economic activities. Last but not least, we have since January 2021 the new European Bauhaus, which is actually a driving force behind the idea of the European Green Deal, and which tries to bring that deal to life in an innovative and in a human-centered way. So it is focusing on places we all inhabit and on ideas just to make these places more inclusive to all people. The idea of the EU regulation is important for us because of the investments which people are asking for. So before starting to talk a little bit about that kind of what kind of sustainable investments we do have, I would like to mention here that we do have in the EU since March of this year an important regulation, which is the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, SFDR. And the aims of these rules are first to orient more capital to sustainable investments, first, and second, to build a framework for credibility and transparency. This is where transparency comes into play. So these SFDRs have to be in place on different levels. First, financial market participants need to disclose that information on a firm level about their sustainability policies. And second, they need to disclose information on a product level about their financial products. So on both levels, be it firm or product level, these MFPs need to report on a list of sustainability factors. So this is why when we talk about sustainable investments here, it is not only because of the regulations, but it is also because of the recent public opinion, which is bringing more and more pressure on all authorities all over the world, just to bring these frameworks into force. So the idea behind this slide is that ESG has become one of the most significant shifts in recent history in the investment industry. So every second fund is telling its investors that it is sustainable, but in some way sustainable. Which brings us to the idea of that ESG is running actually a big risk of losing credibility, because we do have a real problem, and we do have a serious problem, which is called greenwashing. So this is something which is happening in general in the investment world, and of course in the real estate, which is part of the investment world. So let us have a look at the real estate case. You guys have surely heard about the World Economic Forum, which said that the real estate sector consumes annually more than 40% of global energy, and that buildings generate roughly 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and that buildings use more than 40% of raw materials. There are lots of statistics. I would like only to mention a second one, which is from the World Bank, which estimates that the real estate sector has to reduce carbon emissions by 36% by 2030. That means roughly 9 years, just to support staying within the 2% degrees Celsius threshold for global warming limit, 2% and 36%. We're not talking about the 1.5 Celsius degrees. Just to put it in the right way. But there are problems which are looming, and these problems are really real for all of us. Here are some of them. Real estate data is lacking everywhere in different ways. There is no one fully uniform certification system. We have different standards, be it LEED in North America, in Asia, BREEAM, in the UK, DGNB in Germany, and so far and so forth. And thirdly, it is difficult to measure, to standardize, and to compare monetary valuation of sustainability aspects. So at this stage, I would like to share some ideas with you about data. And data in real estate. So real estate is a big, a long, a huge, and a complex cycle. So we talk here about brick earth, which real estate people bring to buildings, and back from buildings to brick earth. This is what I'm trying to show in the picture on the right side. So when you see all the stakeholders which are involved, and all the data, each one of them brings into play in the real estate cycle. So this is something which is in itself already complex. When you have on the other side a look on the changing regulatory environment, so you will surely surely see that we are getting into trouble, because we are having to deal with huge amounts of data, and with a changing regulatory environment that is asking us to aggregate and to automate data. And this is the problem in the real estate sector, because aggregating and automating data excuse me, is also often problematic for real estate firms, because there is no single IT system. And you have, because of that, so the so-called siloing of information in different systems. Secondly, you have a heavy reliance on manual processes because of the archaic, partially automated processes. So on the other side, if we try to understand the regulators and the authorities, so we're going to see to a different degrees that the regulators themselves are ill-equipped to manage all the data they might get from the real estate investors. Which brings me to the idea from the investor's view, what information should then an investor trust, and can he trust this information he might get? So maybe some last ideas here about the real estate cycle I mentioned just a few minutes ago. We do have simultaneous roles in this cycle, which makes the whole story of creating, managing, and sharing data more complex. And again, it is about data. So if you have a look to the picture on the right side, we are talking here about data really from A to Z. So we are talking about basic data we need to build a sort of a reporting system which has enough credibility for investors to show them that the real estate behind that, the property, is really sustainable. So we are talking about, as I've said, about basic data. That means all the information needed to explore and construct the property, about the site constitutions, all the way down to the deployed materials. And then once the building has been done and the property has been considered as a real investment, so you do have all the other stories and all the other information you need from the investment side, like operating and maintaining costs and all the source of income and financing. So at this stage, it might be interesting. This is where, for me, the idea of blockchain comes in. Gathering and irrevocably storing all data and making them available on a historical basis for all stakeholders of the property. And that can be achieved through a blockchain-based system. So using technologies based on a trusted ledger to record data of all properties you might have as an investor, securely and irrevocably, can benefit your data security and improving that, establishing a better process performance, and increasing confidence in decision making. Remember the question I asked some slides maybe 5 minutes ago? So at this stage, I would like to share some few ideas about the blockchain with you. So actually, one key feature of blockchain technology, that is a distributed database, only allows to append operations, not amend and not delete. So this is where credibility comes into play. And the primary objective of blockchain-based applications is to establish a shared source of truth, which is very important for us, for the credibility, for fighting greenwashing. So blockchain, to me, has the potential to solve several pain points for real estate companies and for regulators. All transactions can be documented immutably on a distributed ledger, providing a comprehensive, a secure, a precise, and a permanent sustainability-related audit trail, which is very important for credibility. And since blockchain data is shared by design, regulators themselves would not have to collect, to store, to reconcile, and to aggregate the information. So this is mainly the idea I wanted to share here. This is the investors' view that real estate companies themselves would benefit from a more efficient regulatory reporting process, since the distributed ledger would act as first an execution platform and second as a mechanism to store transactional information. So you might have, if you do so, you would significantly improve your ability to comply with sustainability issues, to react to new regulatory and compliance obligations, and to address internal audit requirements, which are getting more and more complex. And that brings me to the idea of transparency games. So we do have, if you have a look at this, at the picture on the right side, we do have different levels to consider. We do have different stakeholders in the investment cycle, which have different frameworks, different needs. We do have to handle with different ideas. I have put here one of them, which is the so-called cradle to cradle. This is like mimicking the nature and reusing waste. And this is what we call as recycling. And if you put all these ideas into focus, you still have to think about gathering your data and to ask yourself, am I creating value? What kind of data do I need in this whole complex process and cycle, real estate cycle, just to be credible enough to show the investment world that I am talking about sustainability, that I am producing sustainable products, and that I am meaning that. And just to finish, and I'll be glad to have your questions. Actually, the blockchain not only can help identify a property and its initial ecological footprint as a starting point, but it also can monitor the whole performance and the whole cycle and the green behavior, the so-called green behavior, as an ongoing process. So I believe that the blockchain-based data management and governance system can help control the impact of the property on climate and report in a trusted way about any risk emanating hereof. That's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for being so patient with me, Anders and Enrique. I am sorry I talked, I guess, a little bit more than 20 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Roland, for your presentation. We really appreciate it. And I think now is the most exciting part, which is the questions from the audience. And maybe I have a couple of questions, and Enrique might have for sure another couple of questions. I want to start with one very, very quick. You mentioned that you basically say that industry needs a model. How far are we in this kind of implementation? And from your experience and the topics you have been looking in, not only in Germany, maybe Europe or beyond, do you see some real case or some kind of implementations?
As of today, Andres, actually not. Can you still see me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, here you go.
Yes.
Not really. So there is, to my knowledge, as of today, there is too many initiatives. There are too many investors who are working on sustainability, but not in a way that to report in the way we will be talking about we will be needing to show, to disclose in a few years. We have had, it was last week or 10 days ago, a new regulation, which is still as a draft, which goes in this way, that investors presenting, marketing sustainable products should report in an understandable way about the goals and how they are going to achieve their goals. And the authorities are acknowledging that it is not that simple as that. So they are giving all investors the possibility to have milestones in a way that you will have to report until you get to the first milestone, and then you will have to start again and go the second step. And this is where, if you look at it from the end, you have to ask yourself, okay, do I have one system? Do I have the model you asked me about? So, of course, we do have many ways to do to build that kind of model, to implement it. This is I have showed one way, but just to finish on that, to my opinion, all investors are still struggling with collecting their data, and then with trying to find a common system of reporting. So as of today, we are still in this stage that we are searching for peer group standards, and once you have these standards, I think all the others would follow. So if the biggest investors would reach that kind of standards, I guess we will soon after that see that kind of models we are today still discussing.
Right, thank you.
So it's very interesting, and I really thank you for your presentation, Roland. The green hacking concept that you present to us, but it's true. In the end, there is no way to really have transparency, of these kind of projects if they are going through all the ESG. And I think we've talked about that technology, always go faster than regulation. And of course, regulation, looking at the financial model or tokenization, blockchain, Bitcoin and all the crypto and everything, all the financial industry is really scared and they don't know what to do. But this should be a great case for the regulation to go first. And if the governments will start proposing that for receiving the benefits of the ESG projects, because there's a lot of benefits involved, governments are looking forward, funds are, wanting to fund on ESG projects. But if there was kind of this regulation or this process that we are talking, and that also Andres told, it's a great example that the government maybe should start, trying to have a real way to verify that it's an ESG project. And of course, blockchain give us the way to do it and to be able to have this transparency through all the process. So have you seen any interest on the regulation part, trying to push it, or it's more like in the startup companies trying to say, hey, let's do this? I don't know.
I did actually, and it is to me a very encouraging sign that we are seeing from the European Union. So what is the European Union doing? They are sending impulses in the European Union, and they are saying, well, we cannot go on this way. So we have to do something just to survive. If we're not talking about ourselves, so we're talking about our children and their children. So this is where the first idea came out of. So what happened since 5 to 6 years is that the regulators on the European level have set up a set of many initiatives, many regulations, which have been since then turned into national regulations. That means you have a European regulation which needs to be implemented, let's say, in Germany as a member of the European Union. And this is where it gets really interesting, because I'm witnessing not only in Germany, in France, in Italy, and even in Switzerland, which is, by the way, not part of the European Union. But I'm seeing the authorities there implementing, taking that ball from the European Union and saying, well, we are trying to understand what is happening, what blockchain means, and I guess authorities are more and more aware about that, and this is where the implementation starts, when the national authorities are turning that kind of initiatives on the European level into national regulations. And this is what is happening in Germany. This is the role of authorities. When we talk about government, so the German government has had it was last year an initiative to boost the idea of blockchain. We're not talking about Bitcoin. So this is something where even the investment world is saying, well, we do have the authorities trying to catch up and trying to give us a framework to do that, and we do have that kind of initiatives from the governments which tell us to go this way, try to use to experiment, to implement the new technologies, and especially in the case of Germany and that paper in blockchain. So just to summarize, there are, in my opinion, today some very encouraging signs of understanding, accepting, and fostering the blockchain technology. Yes.
Okay, Roland. Well, thank you very much. We are running almost out of time, but and for the panelists, they are asking, for if we can share some use cases. We will work and we will send you an email of some of the things that's going on. Right now, we have to close the webinar, but thank you very much for being here with us and for sharing all this information, and really it's really interesting that see more cases of use of blockchain, more than just the financial industry, that it's kind of very strong right now. But thank you very much. Thank you from the LATAM community. And hopefully, you'll join us for another webinar in the future. And let's keep in touch and keep building the community. And thank you again for being here with us.
Muchas gracias, Enrique, Andres, and everybody por su atención.
No, next time you'll do it in
Thank
Spanish.
You, Roland.
You have great Spanish.
You're improving so well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you. So, bueno, queremos invitarlos a, como cada webinar, a nuestro próximo webinar, la serie 4, en donde hablaremos de la centralización de datos en el sector inmobiliario y el papel de la autoridad en blockchain, en cuanto a cómo se están administrando y cómo pues, blockchain sigue trayendo nuevas soluciones al sector inmobiliario. Andrés, si quieres, la invitación a todos a Fibree, a que se unan a fibree.org, en donde la comunidad cada vez sigue creciendo. Lo platicábamos algunos de los webinars pasados, en donde tenemos una nueva plataforma, en donde podemos ver pues todo lo que está pasando alrededor del mundo, con diferentes eventos, diferentes meetups, y bueno, pues invitarlos a que sean parte de esta comunidad. Aprovechen que todavía es gratis unirse, porque va a cambiar el año que entra, pero bueno, pues a invitarlos a todos a que se sigan uniendo.
Bueno, Enrique, queremos agradecer también a nuestros patrocinadores, a Fibree, a Mountain X, a Proptech, a LATAM, a Colombia Proptech, a México Proptech, a Cancham México, a Citizen y a Stay Real TV. Les pedimos disculpas por los problemas técnicos que tuvimos al comienzo. Estamos mejorando y creería que una buena conclusión, como lo has comentado, Enrique, es que ya estamos entrando en temáticas de centralización, de cómo el blockchain realmente entra en la industria. Entonces los invitamos a que sigan leyendo el reporte y a que nos sigan en el próximo webinar que tendrá lugar en el mes de diciembre. Gracias a todos y les estaremos comunicando muy pronto el lugar para la inscripción. Y también los invitamos a que nos hagan parte de dudas o de temáticas que les gustaría de pronto tener relacionadas al blockchain en la industria. Hay muchos temas, entonces estamos recibiendo iniciativas y de nuevo los invitamos a que nos sigan en la plataforma como Enrique lo estuvo compartiendo, porque después de Navidad va a tener una membresía, pero es un gran lugar en donde la comunidad está creciendo cada mes. Gracias de nuevo.